Good Saturday morning and welcome to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter. The show that's talking about all the great things happening in our community and the people behind the scenes making them happen. Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. We have a great show for you this morning with my special guest, Putnam County Schools Director, Mr. Jerry Boyd, and School Board Chairman, Dr. Dawn Fry. Welcome, Jerry and Dawn. Thank you for being on the show this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Randy.
We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about education and the Putnam County School System this morning, but first I'd like for both of y'all to start out. Jerry, you first, and you have an extensive background in the school system. You're tenured for several years and kind of worked your way up through the ranks, but give us a little bit about your history and where you started at and what got you to the point you are today.
Sure. Well, my initial introduction to the school system was as a student. My family moved here when I was 13 in 1983, graduated Cookville High School 1988, and then became, was first, hired for a summer school job after going to college in 1995. So I did summer school session in Cookville High School in 1995 in the summer. After my first teaching job in East Tennessee, we came back. My wife and I both are educators. We came back. She actually was hired in Putnam County before I was in 1997. And then shortly after she was hired, I was hired to teach in our school system. So we've been in the school system in Putnam County for the most part since 1997. And I was hired as a teacher, and quickly I became an assistant principal. An opportunity opened at Upperman High School, so I moved from Cookville High School to Upperman High School as a young assistant principal, 27 years old, and working with Mr. Shanks, Wayne Shanks. And then from that point, progressed to principal at Upperman for the next 5 years after being assistant for 3, and then came to the district level for curriculum supervisor job, and turned into a technology director job. And then ultimately working with Dr. Kathleen Earhart was the assistant superintendent or director of schools until she left and went to the State Department, and then the board appointed me after she left as a superintendent.
You've worked your way up through the ranks, and I always said I started out as a 911 dispatcher and worked all the way up through EMS director and now county executive. There's one thing that nobody can ever say to you in the school system is, you don't know what I'm going through.
Well, I mean, for the most part, that's true. You certainly want to listen. There are situations that I really didn't, I never experienced that.
But you've been there in all of those positions to know what people have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yes,
That's
sir.
great. You've had a great tenure. Dawn, where did you start from? I know you're a local attorney here in Cookville with your husband, a successful law firm, but give us a little background about what brought you there.
Sure. I too began as a student in Putnam County. I graduated from Cookville High School, then went to Tennessee Tech, and then of course on to law school after that. But I had children in 2002, and I have boy-girl twins, Cindy and Austin. They're now 16. They go to CHS. But as my kids began in the school system, of course I began to have more of an interest in our system and what was going on in our schools. And then I also have, and my son Austin has autism, so I have a special needs child as well. So that introduced me into a whole different perspective,
different realm, yes.
that some people never know of. So I really felt like I was called to run for the school board, and because I did resist that calling just a little, but I'm so glad that I did it. But I just wanted to be more involved in the decisions that were being made for our students, not only typical students, but for the special needs in our special education department as well.
One thing I've heard over the years about Putnam County Schools is we have a great special needs program in Putnam County that a lot of other counties may not have. You know that firsthand.
Oh, absolutely. We have a fabulous special education department, and we have families that move here not only from other counties in Tennessee, but from other states, because they hear about our program. And of course no program is perfect, but we have got so many things that we have just administrators and teachers that think outside the box, that really want to say, how can we do this better? How can we help this student? And really want to individualize it. So you're absolutely correct. It's a fantastic program.
And them being willing to think outside the box helps to always been willing to change depending on the circumstance. I'm sure
That's
it really
right.
helps make that a great program. We're talking to Don Fry and Jerry Boyd of the Putnam County School System this morning. Our county is going through a real growth spurt. All thousands of new jobs, new businesses, a housing boom going on in our county. I know that affects schools. Jerry, can you give us a little bit of maybe some stats on where our schools are now with student population and number of teachers and those kind of things for our listeners?
Sure. You know, in the last 10 years, the growth's been steady, but not unmanageable, and it currently is not unmanageable for us. But you know, what we've seen the last 2 years, where the 10-year average growth would have been right around 1%, maybe a little less in some years a little more, 1.5 on high. But last 2 years, I believe the number has been right at 2%, and currently, right now, what we're seeing in our calculations is about a 2.5% growth in student
from year to
enrollment.
year.
And what has usually happened, the trend in the past, was we had a big enrollment jump around Labor Day or the beginning of school,
Yeah.
and it would decline but what we're seeing, you know, we don't see that decline. The last couple of years, we've seen that increase at the beginning of the year, and at the middle of the year, it's steady, and in some cases, we see a little bit of bump in the middle of the year, and then by the end of the year, it's stayed steady. We do not see that decline. So that's been our trend the last couple of years, and that kind of goes along with all the growth we see across Putnam County, and it's certainly reflected in our schools. You know, thankfully, we're not experiencing some of the growth that some of our neighbors to the west see.
Rutherford
The
County,
larger
Wilson.
counties, Rutherford
Yeah.
County, Williamson County, you know, those counties, Wilson County even, their percentages are much more than 2.5%. But it's manageable for us, but it certainly is something that should keep all of us our eyes wide open and be prepared for how we're going to manage this.
We had, in calculations I did for the end of the year, we had over 200 new homes built out in the rural part of the county. We had over 700 new homes built out in the rural part of the county in the last 4 years. I'm going to ask you this question and see if you agree or not. Our population seems to be increasing. I think our 2020 census is going to be more than what people think it's going to be. But with all that building boom and everything, are you seeing your projections going forward? I mean, how do you guess on students going forward? That seems like it's a difficult job.
It's a trend. We actually did a study. It was completed in the fall and winter of 2017, which wasn't that long ago. Already a year later, the projections are close, but actually we've exceeded the projections.
Of what they
know,
originally.
Statistically, the demographers, the professionals, they take all the data, they project based on a trend and a model. And what we've seen so far this year, it was close, but we've exceeded what they projected. So, you know, we have to be aware of that.
And it's a guess. It's
Yes.
a guessing game as going forward. I want us to talk a little bit more about that and talk about the other things going on in the school system in the future, but we need to take a break. My guests this morning are Dr. Don Fry and Jerry Boyd with the Putnam County School System. You're listening to Today in Putnam County on News Talk 107.7 and 1400 The Hub. I'm Randy Porter, your host. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter. The show's talking about all the great things happening in our community. I hope you're having a great Saturday morning. My guests this morning are Jerry Boyd, Director of Schools, and Dr. Don Fry, who is the school board chairman. We've been talking about our school system and the growth that we're seeing. Jerry, you were giving us some numbers before the break. Total population, school population now of students, where are we at? Where's that stand at?
Currently, we're at a little over 11,700 students, and that's pre-K through 12th grade. So that is, when we take out our pre-K, we have approximately a little over 400 students in our pre-K programs, which is essentially half of usually our kindergarten class, because of the requirements to be in our pre-K programs. But you know, we are seeing a large number of students. In some of our classes are heavier than they've ever been. Classes, I mean grade levels.
Mm-hmm.
For example, our freshman class probably this year is the largest freshman class we've seen before in
Wow.
total numbers at all three of our traditional high schools. So, you know, we have to be aware of the trends.
So, Tennessee Tech, I think I was hearing numbers come from them, and they were talking about this being the largest freshman class that they saw in several years. So you're seeing the same thing at the high school?
We are. Cookville High School in particular, I believe it's the largest freshman class they've had. So, and the other high schools say the same thing, especially Upperman and West, and even Monterey.
Wow. Putnam County School System is our second largest employer in Putnam County. I think at one time maybe been number one, but I think the hospital may have passed it up. Got about 1,600 employees
Yes.
total. Is that about right?
Yes.
We brought in all these new jobs, about 4,000 new jobs I think in the last 4 years. We're seeing on the county level issues with departments of finding people to work. Are you seeing that on the school system level?
I think that's always a challenge for a school system to attract and retain good, qualified professionals, in whether it be teacher or teacher's aide. So I think that's always a challenge for us. But we try to develop a culture that within the schools and within the system that teachers are attracted to and want to be part of and want to stay with us and want to come here and teach in our schools.
Sometimes it's not all about the pay, is it?
That's exactly right. That's where the culture makes a big difference, and the people that you work with.
And sometimes it's the small things that you can do to help those folks. Of course, pay is a large part of it. We have to pay our bills, and that's part of it. But sometimes the little things. We have a great group of folks that do a great job in teaching Putnam County, our children, and keeping our school system where it's at. A lot of that comes from planning. I know that you two feel the same way I do, that we have to be planning for the future, and you got to be looking out, whether that's a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever it is. This school board especially has done a great job in planning and looking out to the future. What's the future look like with Putnam County? How can you? We have a difficulty of going out more than 5 years sometimes and trying to figure out how's the school board address that, and what's your philosophy for looking out to the future?
Well, we have tried to be more involved in planning. In fact, this Saturday is our planning session that we're having for the whole board to come in, our work session, and we talk about those things. And we do try to look at what's going to be in the next year, what can go 2 years, what's 5 years look like, and then even what 10 years looks like. And that is one of the things that we heard from the county commission as well, that they wanted to know what we were thinking in a broad plan and over years. So we want to work with them as well to let them know what our needs are going to be, so that when we get there, we're all prepared and we can hopefully provide that, because we certainly don't want to have a stagnant school system. We want it to grow. We want programs to get better. We want to add programs. We want to be able to add things. You talked about jobs. What jobs are needing to be filled right now? How can we meet those needs? So that's what we are really trying to do. And look, and it's not always, it's never easy to do, but we want to be prepared. And just like you said, with buying property and being prepared for a new elementary school or another high school, we know it's coming. It's just a matter of when is that going to be?
Is that going to happen? Jerry, you're in a unique situation where that you have a board that oversees the school system. You're the executive director, but yet you have to go to the county commission for funding. Talk a little bit about that, and I know it's the equation is complicated when it comes to BEP funds and everything. Talk a little bit about to our listeners about how the school system is funded.
Sure. And yes, I don't know if we have enough time to fully go through
It's a 30-minute show.
Funding program, but in a very succinct way, the funding we receive, the majority of it comes from sales tax, both state funding and our local funding. And then in local funding, there's an additional portion that's property taxes. But in the big scheme of it, in a $90 million budget, about 30%, 35% to 36% is local funds directly, the local portion of the sales tax and the property tax and a few other fees. And the rest of that is a combination. Majority of it's state, which is essentially about 56 to 60% is state funding. And then there's a small portion, but it's a significant and an important portion that's federal funded. So somewhere between, it fluctuates between 7 and 10% is the federal funds that flow to us. So in a big budget, You know, a lot of it is the state sales tax funds. That's why the 2007 recession really hit us hard as a
Right.
county. The funding of schools is because we rely a lot on sales tax
Sales tax.
funds. Yeah, but we working with the county commission. It's a very deliberate thing that we must do. I must do as the agent of the board. You know, as a representative of our board. But it's about relationships, it's about maintaining communication, and that's always tough. Communicating consistently is the intention, but sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way it needs to. So communication's key, making sure people are aware, nobody's surprised. And when we do encounter surprises, being prepared, the contingency planning, what are we going to do about this?
Plan B.
Yes, sir, Plan B.
You did something this year, or this past year, that I had not seen before. You brought the school board to the county commission. I've been in county government since 1980. I do not remember in all those years seeing that before, and I think that speaks highly of the school board and of you, Jerry, with wanting to communicate. And so your goal behind doing that, well, talk a little bit about that and what you presented to them.
Well, our goal was the relationship. And this is my second term on the school board. I'm 2 years in, so I've been here for 6 years. I believe that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But I know before I was on the board, the relationship between the school board and the county commission was not good.
Contentious.
Yes, and there was, trust wasn't there. And I don't know how all that played out, but it wasn't there. So, and I can feel a difference now just from
Absolutely.
me from when I started on the board to now. But we really want to build back that relationship because we're really in it for this. I mean, we have the same goals. I mean, we want to see Putnam County do well, and the school system plays a huge part in that. Even when you're trying to attract new industry here,
Economic development, yes.
they look at your school system to see how it ranks and how it does. So we really wanted to just reach out and build a relationship, and I think it's going well. I mean, I know I have better relationships with the county commissioners now, and I see them in town, and they'll say, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" And we can have a conversation. So it's building, and I'm very proud of that.
I think it was taken very positive from the commission side, from what I've heard and talking to the commissioners, and you basically laid out your full plan for the next several years as far as schools that we're going to need renovating, schools that you're looking to build, and so forth. So there was a lot of data that you threw at the commissioners to try to get them prepared for the future, Jimmy?
Sure. I think you have to be aware of throwing all this data at them, and they really don't work with it every day or on an extended basis. So try to be very respectful. I know they can understand it clearly, and I have to present it in a way that doesn't cause confusion, and that's a challenge sometimes because it's so complex. But we just laid out some of the key priorities that from the study we did, and the board's direction they've given to me. And we got to continue fostering that relationship because we all have to gain the trust of the community. That's who the elected officials represent directly based on who's elected them, and then they've appointed me to oversee the school system. So we're all working for the improvement of the community as a whole. And in our case, we really focus heavily on children.
Absolutely.
But everyone that surrounds those children, we want to make sure we put the best resources to get our job done. But it takes a team. We believe strongly the core value of our board is teamwork. And to do that, you have to maintain relationships. Relationships get strained, and it's a constant effort. You have to be diligent about that.
Well, I commend both of you and the school board for doing what you did and bringing it to the county commission and building those relationships. I agree 100% that that's what it's all about, relationships and communications. We're talking to Schools Director Jerry Boyd and School Board Chairman Dawn Fry this morning. You're listening to Today in Putnam County on News Talk 107.7 and 1400 The Hub. I'm Randy Porter, your host. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter. The show is talking about all the great things happening in our community. Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. We're talking with Jerry Boyd, the Director of Schools, and Dawn Fry, the School Board Chairman, this morning about our Putnam County School System and the future. Let's get to the future. School Board has been planning on a new school coming up, and recently you purchased some land down on Lee Seminary Road. Can you talk about the school board's plans for that land and the future of a new school?
our plan is to have an elementary school there, and I think you hit on it in the first segment when you said that about how many homes were being built in the county. That is where we're seeing that growth. That's why we need a new elementary school in that particular area, because that's where a lot of the growth, is.
Right.
Our ring of schools that we have right now, I think at one of our meetings, someone said that at one point those were like, that wasn't even the city limits of Cookville or something. At the
Outside
time.
the
It was
city
outside the
limits, I
city
think.
limits,
Yeah.
which is mind-blowing when you
Mind-boggling,
think
yeah.
about it. But we just have to adapt and grow and go where the population is. So right now the plan is for an elementary school on that property.
Going down in that end of the county. Jerry, the timeline when we start looking at needing a new elementary school, is that today? Is that tomorrow? Is that 3 years from now? Or, I mean, do you have a timeline yet?
Well, honestly, Randy, it was yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
But we're still in good shape if we can get moving and make some good progress and do what we need to do to get that rolling. But we really need probably that to be in place. A 3-year window would be good. I would be comfortable with a 3-year window. After that, if it goes beyond that, we're really stretched. Right now, we're about, if we look at all of our classrooms, K through 12 at all of our schools, we're at about 85% capacity.
Okay.
And 85% capacity doesn't sound like it's full, but you're starting to see evidence, especially the schools that are over 90% capacity, some elementary schools, of some potential issues. We do not want to bring portable classrooms in. We've done that in the past. We realize that that may be a drastic measure that we may have to consider if we have growth that is just unpredicted.
Right.
But if we don't have to, we want to plan and execute that plan to make sure we don't have to do that.
So we're planning ahead. Just for our listeners, the school board's already bought the land on Lee Seminary Road near the business park.
Yes. It's 45 acres.
45
and we knew, and it's been discussed, there's some, in any part of the, any area, anything in that area is going to have some soils issues. So we will have to deal with that in the design phase. I think it's doable. I mean, we have some very talented engineers and some smart people in this region that can certainly make sure it's cost effective and it stabilizes the soil in a way that we can build a good, long-lasting structure on that soil.
Great location, I think, with all the growth that's going on in that end of the county, and you're right there next to the business park. You already got sewer, water, gas, all things you're going to need. Location.
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts is there enough room on that land? Should it become necessary to make that a K through 8?
It's certainly something the board has asked questions and others, and there is. We have some footprint kind of sketches. It would stretch because of some of the challenging topography that it would be too costly to manage. We just want to enjoy that nature on that property instead of try to engineer it. But with what we can engineer, it's possible.
Possible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Don, do you see families liking that K through 8 situation where that they may have multiple children and so they can drop them all off in a certain area where you've got that K through 8 facility?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of our families are enjoying that kind of model and like the fact that their child they change schools, but they don't change campus. Right. So they're all there, and then if you have more than one child at different schools, you're not having to, as you say, drive all over to drop them off. So I think that is something that yes, the community is really interested in that model, and we would like to see that continue.
Good. In our last few minutes that we've got on the show, let's talk about the future of education. I hear more and more about online courses and dual enrollment and all those kind of things. It's kind of amazing listening to some of our high school graduates that have already got 20 credits at a college already that they've been able to do dual enrollment. What do you see the future for that? Is that going to continue to increase, or do you see a new technology coming out that will take the place of that, or what do you see for the future of the?
Fortunately, our team in the mid 2000s, specifically around 2007 and 8, we implemented on a small scale an online program, and it's grown over the last 10, 12 years. I guess it'd be 11 years. So we had that in place. So we have the foundation for flexible offerings through online digital access. But really, I think a mixture of that, a hybrid, where students might and are currently taking some classes online because maybe we can't provide that physical class because of numbers, but we can provide the opportunity. And then the other classes are face-to-face, or what we call brick and mortar, classes. So a good hybrid to maintain flexibility. I see that happening more and more across the nation, and we're right in the middle of it in Putnam County. I see what you mentioned, dual enrollment, dual credit, especially with the election of Bill Lee. One of his platforms is offering more career and technical education programs with industry certification. Well, we've been doing that, but I think there's going to be an increase in addition to the access to four-year college courses that we've have been doing for many years.
Right.
It's just a push that students need to experience that under the secure, I guess, the support system of a high school setting.
Right. So
So when they go into the college setting, we have fewer students dropping out because they've experienced the challenges of college classes, but with a little more support in the high school setting. So we're seeing that happen, and we'll see more of that, both on the career and technical side and the academic four-year college path side.
one thing I like about what our school system is doing, and I give you all the credit, is you're giving the students those different paths to go down. Not everybody is meant to go to a four-year university. We're in dire need of electricians and plumbers and people that can program and train the new robotics that are going on in manufacturing and everything. So you've got different paths. They could go down a TCAT level. We even have some of those robotics and stuff that was put out to high school not very long ago.
Yeah, we have a mechatronics lab, which is essentially a simulated industrial setting. So where they industrial maintenance setting where they look at the different robots and different systems that are on the current factories don't look like the factories that
They sure don't.
build. So they're clean. But anyway, yes, we have that program. We're intending to add a robotics program next year in our school system too, a specific robotics. We have an engineering program, and then we have great arts programs and other academic opportunities, health science. So our students have a lot of opportunity. We want to continue to provide quality opportunities.
That's great. One final question.
Sure.
If you could change one thing about education or the school system, if you just snap your fingers and make a change, what would it be, Don?
Well, I think if I could make a change, I would have more parent involvement. I think parents are key in the education program, and supporting students when they're at home is important, and then just having consistency on what a child is learning is so important. So I think if I could snap my fingers, I would have more parent involvement and them having a role in their child's education.
Great answer, Jerry. You're going to have a hard time beating that one.
Well, it's not really a change, but I mean it is a change. I would like to see our community have a common vision of what learning should look like, both in our community and our classrooms, and everyone work together to ensure that that's happening. And you know, when I say that is, sometimes we all go our different ways because we don't have that common vision, and it doesn't always help us progress in the way that we need to. So, common vision, support of our educators, a better support of our educators, and then a love for learning. Move away from test scores as the only measure of learning, and understand that it's hard to measure, quantify creativity, the diligence, the ability to take risks, the ability to overcome failure. We need to focus on those things because those are the skills that they need to have throughout life.
Absolutely. Guys, I want to thank y'all for the great job that you do with our school system. I'm very proud of it. I know our citizens are in our county, and I thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
We've been talking this morning with Schools Director Jerry Boyd and Board Chairman Don Fry about the future education in our county, and I want to leave you something to think about. The education of our children is the key to our future and the success of our county. I've learned early in my tenure as county executive, our school system is one of the key things new businesses wanting to move here are looking at. We have a great school system in Putnam County along with a great group of teachers that are educating our children. Unfortunately, that is not enough, as Don mentioned. We as parents have to do our part. Be involved in your child's education. Support your teachers, principal, and school board because our county's future depends on it. That's our show for today. I want to thank my guests Jerry Boyd and Don Fry with the Putnam County School System for being with us. I hope you'll join us every Saturday morning at 10:30 for Today in Putnam County, right here on News Talk 107.7 and 1400 The Hub. Remember, you can download the WHUB app and listen to us on your cell phone If you missed any of our shows, check out my website at www.randyporter.org, where you can listen and watch all of our past shows. I'm your host, County Executive Randy Porter, hoping you have a great rest of your Saturday. May God continue to bless our great county.